We
are
cultivate.
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 We are cultivate.
Hello and welcome to a special mini-sode of Ye Olde Crime, the show where Maddie and I discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear every Wednesday. This special bi-weekly segment is called Can You Crack the Cramp-Word, which is slang for a difficult or obscure term, which I thought was very fitting. And joining me today is Allison Frye from the Allison in Wonderland podcast. And before we begin, I'd like to give her the opportunity to tell us a little more about herself and her show before we get started.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Lindsay. Like you said, I am Allison. I am from the Allison in Wonderland mental health podcast, where we fall down the rabbit hole and go through the looking glass of mental health. And we talk about all types of mental health issues. And I also am a life coach in coaching in Wonderland. I'm just always in Wonderland. And I started on this mental health advocacy journey in 2007 when I lost my brother as a result of suicide. And I have just been full steam ahead ever since then, working on mental health advocacy and suicide prevention. So basically, I'm just out there talking about everything, whether people want to hear it or not.
Yes. That is a really great segue into my first question I have for you, which is, you have quite the emotional support team. Can you share with our listeners who they are?
Yes, my emotional support team are my 5 cats. All of my kids are grown and I'm a recent empty nester, but I do have 5 cats. 4 of them are named after Futurama characters, but the one is named Moonshadow after the Cat Stevens song Moonshadow, because I always wanted a black cat named Moonshadow. So we've got Moonshadow, his twin Nibbler, Tuxedo Cat that is a complete thief, Bender, Scruffy, who sleeps all of the time, and Kiff, who is terrified of everything. So for anyone that watches Futurama, we named them before we knew their personalities, and they are 100% spot on. But yeah, they are definitely my emotional support team. Like, I was like working on like a really stressful, messed up website earlier for my day job. And I was like, okay, I know that physically I am just like incapable of taking a nap, but I'm going to go lay down. And then like 3 cats laid on me for like 30 minutes. And I'm like, cool. Now I can go do the rest of the day.
It's amazing how animals can do that. Like they'll just it's like they just know. Like I have a dog, and on days when I'm just really just kind of off, she will try to be as physically close to me as humanly possible. Like she's trying to merge with my body almost. And those are the days where I'm like, yeah, you get me. You understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm constantly Googling, do most cats love their humans this much? Because everybody talks about cats being jerks. And I'm like, my cats love me. They want to snuggle. They want me to rub their belly. Like, they are so rotten. And apparently that's not normal.
That is interesting. Yeah, because we had a cat growing up, Patches, and I could not tell you what kind of cat he was, but he was essentially a dog. Like he would just show you his belly all the time, just kind of follow you around, lay in your lap, give you lots of love, super chill.
They are kind of jerks, though. They've learned interesting ways to get me up in the morning if I don't want to feed them at 5 a.m. Nibbler will walk around my bedroom and knock things off of the dresser and the nightstand. And I sleep with like a sleep mask on. And Moonshadow has learned how to push the sleep mask off of my face. And then it never makes it past Bender. Bender, if it gets past Moonshadow, Bender will come and crawl up on my chest and paw kind of at me like, mommy, give me snuggles. So they have like this phased approach to make me get up and feed them at 5 a.m.
They're like, you know your jobs.
So they are kind of jerks, but they do it in a cute way. I know. Like, how does Moonshadow know to take my sleep mask off?
When you first introduced your podcast, you did go into a little bit about what inspired you to become a mental health advocate. Was there anything that sort of pushed you towards pursuing mental health advocacy?
So it's interesting. I always tell people that my journey started when I lost my brother in 2007. I then also lost my mother as a result of suicide in 2010. And I say that that's when my journey started because that's when I really started paying attention to mental health. But
Mm-hmm.
then I'm in the process of writing a memoir, also Allison in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass of Mental Health. And my whole life, I've made 2 therapists cry, and I'm like, "This is just normal people's lives, right?" Well, apparently it wasn't. So, that's what really got me on the journey where it was, like, sitting on the couch across from therapist and, like, working it out. I went and got a couple of degrees in psychology because I didn't understand what was going on, and I needed to understand. So, apparently I grew up in a home with a lot of mental illness and all of these things that I didn't realize, and people are like, "Don't say that you're broken." And I'm like, I kind of am proud of being one of the broken toys because I also
Mm-hmm.
am a contributing member of society and one of the broken toys. So, I mean, it all started when I lost my brother, but definitely as I'm writing the memoir, I'm like, wow, I'm at age 7 here. So this is definitely, it all started a long time before that, but it's just grown since then. I think that I got a couple of degrees in psychology, but I like life coaching and I like helping people with their careers because I've had a 20-year marketing career. I like being people's peer support, but I don't want to be anybody's therapist because
Yeah.
I feel like the responsibility of losing my mom and my brother, and I know it's not my fault, but I feel like the responsibility and the anxiety of that for our mental health professionals, like, I don't know how they do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I will help in the ways that I can help. And then, I know I've taken courses to know when to refer you to a professional that is more professional than I am.
Yep. Yep. For sure. So, my last question for you, in the course of your podcast, have you noticed a common misconception about mental health that you'd like people to stop accepting as truth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's more when I'm interviewed on other people's podcast, I have noticed that the question comes up a lot that's, well, tell the audience what you missed. What can they look for? And I feel like I can say, well, there are all of these things going on in my brother's life. It's like a psychological autopsy where you go in and you're like, these things and these things and these things,
Mm-hmm.
but saying, like, "What did you miss?" It sounds like it's putting blame, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like they're blaming me, but I get very worried that the message to the audience that's listening is that, well, these are the things that you missed if you didn't catch this, because you're talking about 1,000 things and I had one piece of this 1,000-piece puzzle. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think the misconception is that, you know, obviously we know now by the research, we know suicide is preventable, but
Mm-hmm.
also there's no reason to blame people because they so-called missed something.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of blame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of what ifs. I mean, there's a lot of emotions to losing anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lost people in other ways. I can tell you losing someone as a result of suicide raises a lot of questions that other losses don't. And I wouldn't want anybody to think that I'm saying, oh yeah, if I'd known this, I would have saved my brother, which means you can save you know what I mean? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
we have tools, we have this suicide prevention lifeline and all of these things. You don't have to know all of the things. Just, be there for people. Be
Mm-hmm.
nice. Don't be a
Yeah.
jerk.
Yeah.
Be good people.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. I never would have thought of it that way, but you're right. Like that, it does put that onus of what did you miss, or what did people miss when it
Right.
comes to signs and symptoms and
Well, and we missed a lot. But, like, do you sit down with everybody that is connected to one person in your life and talk about every single thing that an interaction you've had? Like, you're talking about people across multiple states and different types of
mm-hmm.
relationships. Like, I mean, there are a few big things that were going on that I didn't know about, and I think the Allison that is now would jump in and be like, "Oh, something's going on." But there's
Mm-hmm.
no way that the Allison that I was then would have known to do that.
And not everyone is a mental health professional. Not everyone knows what things to look for, so it seems a little unfair to ask that question
Well, and
when.
they're asking it of themselves too. They're thinking, what if I had done this? And what if I had done that? And what if I had done this? And I'm saying suicide is preventable. And if you're worried about someone, you can call or text 988 and just be like, hey, I'm concerned my person did this, like, should I be worried? And they're not going to like send a van of people with white coats to your house or to their
Mm-hmm.
house. They're going to chat with you and let you know things to, look for and kind of like conversation starters and questions to ask. And, I'm a mental health advocate, but I still refer people to 988 when they need the help. I'm not the professional that's getting the daily updated training on those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception is the what did you miss? And I'm like,
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Before we move on to the trivia portion, is there anything else you'd like people to know about you or your podcast?
I think the most important thing that I always like to share, back to the suicide prevention part, is really if you're not here tomorrow, somebody will miss you. And I think that's a big misconception is that people feel alone and they feel isolated. But I can tell you that I've read about people that I didn't know about, celebrities or friends of friends that died as a result of suicide, and I mourn and I grieve and I weep for them. And so even if you feel like no one around you would care, somebody would care if you're not here tomorrow. And I will be one of those people. So I just think that more than promoting my podcast or life coaching or anything, I really just want to promote the fact that you're really not alone and the world would be, a worse place without you if you weren't here tomorrow.
Beautifully put. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Allison Frye. I am a mental health advocate and the host of the Allison in Wonderland mental health podcast. I wanted to talk to everyone about suicide prevention before we hop into any other topics. I started this journey of being a mental health advocate after losing my brother in 2007 and my mother in 2010 as a result of mental illness and suicide. This makes suicide prevention a very strong passion that I have. This has led me down the journey of over 15 years of being an advocate for suicide prevention and mental health. This is the reason that I hop on episodes multiple times a week to discuss my personal lived experience and the experience that other people have had in mental health. I talk to experts, I talk to authors, I talk to people that have just lived through things in life that they want to share so that you can feel a little less alone in whatever you're going through. What's really important about this, though, is that I am a mental health advocate, which means I talk about mental health all the time. You cannot get me to shut up about it. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a healthcare professional. So I'm an advocate. I talk about these things. But what I want to make sure that you really take away from this is that there are so many resources out there for help when you're in a crisis state. The National Suicide Lifeline has recently changed their number to a 3-digit dialing or texting code. This is 988. When you text or dial 988, you can get in touch with someone local to you that is able to help you through the crisis state and find the resources that you need in order for you to know what the next steps are. So if you don't want to call or text 988 or you forget the number, because honestly, you're in a very stressful situation if this comes up, 911 is still available. The emergency room is still available. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this message. I really hope that everyone understands that suicide is preventable, and it's something that we all need to work on a daily basis. We can save lives in ways that we never realized that we could.
So now, awkwardly segue into Victorian cramp words. So are you ready?
Well, that's okay. I use humor to mask my emotions, so let's have it.
That's the name of the game here in the Midwest, baby. We just, you bury it deep
Absolutely.
inside.
Yep.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I was talking to my therapist earlier today, so, it's all good.
Yeah, I talk to mine a lot. People are like, when are you going to be done with therapy? Never.
No.
No.
I've done it
This is a
numerous
lifelong
times.
relationship.
Yeah, I know. I basically told my therapist she can never leave me.
No, I moved out of state and made her get licensed in Kentucky so we could keep having telehealth calls. I was like, I will pay for it.
What's your Venmo? I'll send you some money.
Exactly.
All right. Your first slang term is dock. D-O-C-K.
So, obviously, I'm thinking not like a dock that you would dock a boat to, and probably not like a dock that's a doctor. Okay, let's see. What else could possibly be a dock? Debt of some kind? I don't know. Like like a document seems too on the nose too. I would think, maybe like a debt or something that you owe. I'm very way off, aren't I?
That's a good guess.
You're going to be like, it's a spoon.
You were so close. Dock is Victorian slang for to deflower or to lose one's virginity.
Ooh, okay. Well, you know what? That's definitely a heavy debt to carry.
It is.
There's a lot of responsibility there.
Your second slang term is crummy DOS. So C-R-U-M-M-Y and then DOS, D-O-S-S. And if you want me to use it in a sentence, I can use it in a sentence.
You might have to, because now I'm like, I don't know, like what did they use, for protection in the 1800s?
You don't want to know, because that was probably really gross.
Yeah, probably. And that's why they called it a crummy dosh, right?
Hillary needed to make sure that she had enough coin for her crummy DOS that night.
Dinner? Some really crappy dinner?
You were close with the crappy part. So, crummy DOS is a lousy or a filthy bed.
Okay.
At like a boarding house. So, a lot of times when you would hear in, like Victorian England shows when they're talking about needing their DOS money, that is them needing money to pay for their bed for the night.
There's some docking going on at that crummy DOS.
I hope not. Gross. That's an establishment I do not want to be a patron of. Back before a black light technology.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, for real.
Well, I would like to thank Allison for joining me today for Can You Crack the Cramp-Word? And before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and when new episodes of your podcast come out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to find me is to go to allisoninwonderland.com, and it has the links to all of the things, and it's ALLISONIN wonderland.com. Swear to God, I got that domain for like $10. And I generally post my new episodes on Sundays.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely talking to you. And as always, I'm Lindsay, and I'll see you next time with another tale as old as crime.